Hi folks, it's Mark Smith with Family Tree Life Coaching. I hope everybody is safe and practicing social isolation and finding a way to reinvent yourself in our new normal and finding joy in spite of very difficult times. I've got a client in 25 minutes, so I'm going to talk fast. The title of the video today is 12 Myths About Marriage Counseling. It struck me that many of my videos, when I share about complex PTSD and narcissistic abuse, I'm sharing more from my own personal recovery experience. But when it comes to marital therapy, I'm coming from a great deal of expertise that I have. So I can bring insights and abilities to this issue of not just marriage counseling, but relationship counseling at a very high level of expertise. So here we go, 1 through 12. Number 1, myth about marriage counseling. And that is, you can locate a really excellent marriage counselor fairly easily. Just ask a friend or a neighbor and they'll hook you up with somebody really good. The myth is that there are more great marriage counselors than average marriage counselors than really bad marriage counselors. And the truth is that somebody, whether it be a life coach, more like myself, or a therapist, who can revolutionize your relationship and rebuild it from the ground up with your work and your efforts, that cat is pretty rare cat. So I liken it to this, and I was thinking of an example, and this is all that I could come up with. Bear with me if you're not into football, but finding a really great marital therapist in football is like finding a franchise quarterback. It's like having Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, or Patrick Mahomes. They're very rare. Aaron Rodgers. There's 32 teams and probably only 12 of them have a legitimate superstar franchise quarterback. 12 in the world. Whereas there's another position, running back, where rarely is a running back drafted in the first round or even the second round. The thinking is really good running backs are a dime a dozen. So people believe that finding a good therapist is like finding a good running back. You can get him in the 4th round, the 5th round, the 6th round. You can get him off the street. There's so many good ones that you don't have to spend high draft capital to get one. What you really need is a franchise quarterback. And what I'm telling you is finding a good therapist is not like finding a decent running back. Finding a great therapist is like finding a Tom Brady, an Aaron Rodgers, a Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if you guys know who Patrick Mahomes is. He was the quarterback who just won the Super Bowl last year. Young fella just signed a contract for $10 million for 10 years for $500 million. Somebody who's the best at what they do, they get paid. I wish, well, selfishly, I don't wish that you could find a great therapist on every corner because my business would shrink. But I've been shocked at how inundated I have been with business. I can't keep up with it. The vast majority of my files over there today are new clients. People are hurting. The intensity with the racial unrest and COVID-19 and social isolation is really cranking up people's pain levels, and people are coming in droves. And most of them didn't just randomly throw a dart at a yellow book ad. The best way to find a really great therapist is find a group of friends where 4 or 5 couples have come in and they've all raved about the person. Go to that guy. Number 2, myth about marriage counseling is the job of a marriage counselor is to save your marriage. I never attempt to save anybody's marriage. I don't even believe in marriage counseling. Marriage counseling is, hey, let's the 3 of us brainstorm and see how we can bring a little more spice into your relationship. And that's just a very ineffective, incorrect paradigm. The job of a good therapist is to tell you the truth about yourself, to gather enough family background information to blow your mind with insight about how your grandparents and your parents and your great-grandparents all conspired to form you into who you are and wired you to marry who you married. So the job of a therapist is to get you to choke down as much truth as possible, let the chips fall where they may. I've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of couples save their marriages, but I didn't do it directly. I did it by helping each individual get in their own recovery and get healthier. Number 3, myth. Therapy is a place to go to in order to vent and get things off your chest. People think that because it's their therapy hour, they're paying for it, that they can come in and just vent and triangulate and vomit all over somebody, venting about your spouse, venting about your kids, venting about your boss. I tell people, I will gladly allow you to vomit on me for 50 minutes. My fee is $1,000. And nobody ever wants to pay that. It's not that important to triangulate, I guess. When you work with a really good therapist, they make you focus on you. We can't fix your boss. We can't fix your spouse. We can't fix your kids. But you got a pretty good shot at fixing yourself. Venting is wasting positive, healthy anger that you could bring to bear to your situation. Myth number 4. I hate this one. I hate this one with a passion. I ask a new couple, so tell me, Mary and Joe, what seems to be the issue? And they're like, communication. And I just want to reach out and just throttle them. Yeah, obviously, people who are coming to therapy have communication issues. I get that. But my point is, inability to communicate isn't the problem, it's the symptom. People can't communicate because they have shame or oversensitivity to criticism and critiquing. They have difficulty communicating because they have triggers from past wounds from their childhood and past relationships. They can't communicate because 2 of them turn into 2 angry little kids throwing rocks at each other. We have to get them to their adult selves where they're rational, empathetic, intuitive, and they can have a compassionate, loving conversation where they're curious about the other person. If you'll do that, if even one person will be curious, non-reactive, and genuinely listen to the other person, communication will clear up right away. Fifth myth about marriage counseling is if you see a therapist for your individual therapy, you could never do marital therapy because they're your therapist. They're in your corner. They're biased toward you. That's bullshit. When I see somebody individually, I'm not in their corner. I'm not their advocate, and I'm not biased toward them. And if you're going to do marital therapy, the best therapist for you to go to, if they are genuinely unbiased, is the therapist who already knows half the equation. I already know one guy, and if you bring in the other partner, we're halfway there in terms of my insight level. But I never, ever bring bias to a situation that would preclude me from being able to work with your spouse. That's a myth. Number 6, marriage counseling professionals are too professional to be biased. There's a lot of man-hating female therapists out there. There's probably a lot of female-hating male therapists out there. What a lot of men associate marriage counseling is instead of sitting in a room with one woman telling you you suck, you sit in a room with 2 women who tell you how much you suck, except you just got to pay one of them a lot of money at the end of the hour. The other day, I was working with a couple, and she came in and she was laying out the issues, and I recognized she was describing me and my marriage. And I wanted to jump in and protect him and help kiss his boo-boos, and but I didn't do that because I knew that there was bias. The way to keep unbiased is to know yourself well and to do your own work. It made me sad. It made me have a conversation with my wife later, but I didn't let it interfere with the therapy. But there are a lot of therapists who haven't gone very deep in their work. The best therapists are some who've been in therapy for 25 years and who have some grit and some blood in the game. The 7th myth about marriage counseling is it's always better to meet face to face. Folks, I'm here to tell you that is just not my experience at all. I have a 55-inch TV as my monitor, and I work with people in their cars. I work with people sitting on the floor in their bedroom. I work with people late at night whose kids are sleeping. And I really can't tell any discernible difference between the work that I do with couples over Google Meets, which is HIPAA compliant, than I do people who are I work with face to face. When you work with teleconferencing, you don't have to travel to get to the therapist. You don't have to sit in their waiting room. If you're out of town and one person is in town, all 3 of us can meet, and it's like we're in the same room. You can meet late at night when your kids are asleep. And the only thing I can't see is if your toes are tapping. I can see your face. I can see your eyes. I can see crossed arms. The future of therapy is online, and the future is now. And I did go into the office Tuesday, and I won't go back for a long time. It's just, I've got an old dog, and I am an old dog, and I just much prefer the comfort of home. It makes me a better therapist. I'm more comfortable there. So you might be that 5 out of 100 people that you can only do face-to-face therapy, but what COVID has taught us is telehealth, whether it's your urologist, your heart doctor, your gynecologist, or your therapist. It works, and it especially works very well for therapy. The number 8 myth about marriage counseling is all marital counselings use pretty much the same therapeutic approach. What I hate is I'm working with one guy, and we're working family systems, we're working recovery, we're healing his wounded inner child. And then they think that she can just go to a therapist off an insurance panel and get the same thing. Well, she might get a man-hating woman who advocates for him to get divorced, who's never done her work on her family of origin issues. She may get somebody who does some wacky therapy nobody's ever heard of. She might believe in short-term therapy, which is a waste of time. Anything that doesn't focus on your family of origin isn't therapy at all. It might be called therapy. Therapy is healing the wounds of your childhood. Myth number 9. It's okay to go to your therapist's office and have a big fight. And I do not permit this. If couples get reactive in my sessions, the first time they do it, I might let it go on for 10 minutes because I just want to see what it looks like. But you can fight at home for free. I interrupt and tell them to stop. I tell them to take a deep breath. And I tell them if they keep interrupting each other, I'm going to bounce one of them out the room. And I'll work with them individually until they can be in their adult self and not act out during the therapy session. That won't do you any good. I don't know if any of you saw Ozark. I've been sick recently, and I laid around and I binged Ozark. The funny thing was, the two main characters, Marty and Wendy, they were both bribing the marital therapist to work the other person so that they'd have more leverage in the conversation. I thought that was hysterical. I've never had anybody try to bribe me. I don't think that's a common thing. The 10th myth about marriage counseling is you'll want to find a therapist who's never been divorced. They've never had an addiction. They grew up in a healthy home, and they've never needed to do their own therapy. That's some bullshit right there. Nobody grows up in a healthy home, I hate to tell you. And if your therapist hasn't spent thousands of hours on a therapy couch, don't go to them. When I'm interviewing for a new therapist at Family Tree, I would pick somebody who's been to a ton of marital therapy, and they're still married, and they're gutting it out, and they're doing their family of origin work in the process. But I wouldn't marry the person that I described because they think their shit don't stink. Everybody's shit stinks. What you want is somebody who's deep and wise and gritty. I was training some interns the other day, and I told them, I would always tell them the truth. I told them the truth is, I'm a broken old man. My issues have broken me open. And I told them the reason why I am an extremely effective and talented therapist is the brokenness. I'm saying, y'all listen to me. Let me teach you some things so you don't have to get as broken as what I did. It's a terrible price to pay. The 11th myth, going to a marriage counselor, sort of like going to the dentist. The work is done by the professional during the appointment. You go to a dentist, all you got to do is open your mouth and spit at the right time. You want to spit at the wrong time, spit at the right time. And people come to marriage counseling and they're stuck and they're not making progress, and they're just like, well, Mark, I just don't think you're cutting the mustard. We came here and we're not better. And I write on the board 5 things and I grade their motivation, A, B, C, D, F. Are you motivated? You've canceled 2 of the last 3 appointments. I'm going to give you a D. Are you teachable? You still don't believe in some of the major things I'm trying to teach you. I'm going to give you a D. Do you show your pain in a non-victim-y way? You show your pain in a victim-y way. I'm going to give you a D. Do you trust the process? Obviously not. I'm going to give you a D. Do you do your homework? You haven't read anything I've assigned you? I'm going to give you an F. Who's the problem? It ain't me. The couple before you just saw Jesus and we're singing hallelujah in terms of the growth and the insight and the power of the work. The couple that's coming in, I know they're going to see Jesus. The problem, and I'm delivering the same product to all 3. You have to do the work all your life when you're not in the therapy office. You are responsible for your own work and your own recovery. I've got 2 minutes. The last thing is you can get a really great marriage counselor by picking one randomly from your insurance panel. I get it. It's more fun and it's more reasonable to pay a $30 copay than, I mean, my fee's $175. It's going to be going up to $200 very soon. Get in quickly because it's going up. But a lot of the people that are on insurance panels, they don't have any clients. And so they'll get paid half what I do. They have to do tons of paperwork and they have to wait 2 months to get paid. Why? Because that's all the work they got. You know, if they were a great therapist, people would be lined up at the door willing to pay whatever they needed to pay. So you might get a good marital therapist off an insurance panel. They're lovely people. They're good people. And it might help you, but you might get one who sucks. There's 2 things you don't want to skimp on in life, and that's brain surgery and marital therapy. You want the best, or you want one of the best. I hope that this has been helpful. If you're out there contemplating finding a good marital therapist, we have 4 of us at Family Tree. We're also bringing on an intern, Vernon Billups. Will be available to work initially for free. Those of you who can't afford therapy, you can work with somebody I'm training directly for free. Text me and I'll hook you up with Vernon. I gotta go. I love you guys. I hope this was helpful, and God bless.